Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Hey, I'm good because I'm taking the W on this one. I am taking the win. 1 point on Team Martini. I got Chris Furman to read Sons of Valor, and he's hooked on Andrews and Wilson, baby. Let's go.
Dude, yeah, because I crushed it, and well, I was a little behind. We were supposed to record this on Tuesday, but we had another pod to record. Anyways, but then I started reading it, couldn't put it down or couldn't take it out of my ear. And then I loved it so much I needed to know the next book that I'm already 24 chapters into book 2 at the time of recording. So we will be quickly recording part 2 of this pod with Sons of Valor 2, which may even be better than Sons of Valor 1. Like it's that good.
Yeah.
That's the vaunted one that has a perfect score. Like I'm gonna push you on that score in that pod. But anyways, we're here to talk Sons of
Yeah.
Valor 1 today. So
Yeah, we're going to have to revisit that, but I'm just thinking of this one. I'm also trying to find a way not to just go 50 out of 50 again, loving what these guys are putting out there. But there's a sticking point which we're going to have to talk about, a sticking point that might make me roll things back a little bit. But when it comes to the writing, the characters, the plot, the setting, the action, these guys don't miss a beat. It's just such
yeah.
a well-rounded novel and a thrilling universe to be in.
Yeah, no, and it's, I've only read book 1 of tier 1, and the only reason I read that series was because it was offered to me for free on Amazon when I had what was that service called with the Kindle? I don't know if they still have it,
Unlimited.
but Unlimited.
Yeah.
Do they still have that?
Yeah, they still have Unlimited. I don't know what books.
Yeah, like the books are constantly changing, so
Their publisher does a good job. They do a lot of sales on the first one in the series or give it away like 99 cents, $1.99 or Kindle Unlimited. But then you have to go back and buy the rest. Like I remember,
right.
I think I read
Actually, no,
Sons
this
of
might have
Valor.
been given to me. You have Prime, so you get like you get to choose a free book every month.
Oh, a book a month. Yeah.
I
They
think
were on it.
I think tier 1
Tier
was
one.
on there, and I saw the cover because it's like that cover with like it's like slightly slanted, the operators going down
Yeah,
like the
yeah, 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 yeah.
city and
Yeah.
shooting, and I was like, oh, that seems interesting.
I
I'll take
think
that one.
I think I read Sons of Valor first, and I think it was on Scribed at the time, which is now the
Mm,
Everand app, and it has
right, not
since
on there
come
anymore.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think also like Dark Intercept that was on Scribed at first, but then he had to buy the other ones. Same with Tier 1. I think one of them popped up on it once, and then the rest you'd have to buy. And I
So it's
remember
like
reading
enticing you.
exactly. It's drawing you in. And some series that would piss me off, I'd be like, yeah, no way. I read the first one. I'm good. These guys, though, you read the first one and you want to rip through everything. Now, I haven't done that for Tier 1. So, like you, I read the first one and I read one other Dempsey book. And I think I read it because of the ending of this one, how Theobald and the guys are sitting around and heels, and they're talking about this guy they knew.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, I gotta read some Dempsey. And I know there's a book in the Tier 1 series came out just a year ago called Dempsey. So
Right.
I want to get to that, but we got a lot to read. So yeah, I love everything these guys are writing.
Yeah, and then they do a good job of sprinkling in, especially when now that I'm in the second book, like sprinkling in a little bit to let you know that this is definitely part of the tier 1 universe, the tier 1 shared world as the
Yeah.
Amazon plot says. And speaking of Amazon, you know, we used to cover it like every time, but kind of like they're all the scores were kind of the same, so I stopped like bringing it up. But I will bring it up this time because in doing my like accounting for this for tier 1, it has on Goodreads a 4.53 and on Amazon a 4.7. That is
Dude.
astounding. And I'll say, like it has a solid like 3,000 reviews. So it's not just like one of these ones that only has like a couple hundred reviews. That's a lot. Not as
Yeah.
much as like Mitch Rapp or Brad Thor get within, we're talking in the tens of thousands, but it's a decent amount of reviews and everyone liked it. Or
Yeah.
most everyone liked it. Like that is really good. And I have to totally agree with them.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. If you ask me of the books that we've covered on the pod, what will have the highest Amazon Goodreads rating, I would put this and Damascus Station up there. Like I think these are some of the finest books we've ever covered on this podcast, minus a couple of the really big Mitch Rapp books, your Memorial Day, Consent to Kill, and minus maybe like Alliance of Lucerne. But like, these are up there as some of the best of what the thriller verse has to offer. And I can't wait to talk about it. I think those scores definitely reflect some of the things you and I are going to be talking about today for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to dig into this one.
Well, let me just kick it off as well with a limerick, because all these characters deserve to be mentioned. I tried to fit as many as I could in here. So, there once was a seal named Chunk. With Saw and Riker got spunk. Heels in her team, catch Hamza and Kasim. As always, tier 1's a slam dunk.
Boom, baby. You got them all. You got all the players in there.
I had to.
Yeah, and I don't know. I really want to spend a lot of time, talking about the characters, and because I feel that, this is our first time talking about an Andrews and Wilson book. I was there for the first Andrews and Wilson interview, and I think you've interviewed them since by yourself, but we haven't actually covered an Andrews and Wilson book on the pod.
And I guess we should say we have the third Sons of Valor now. So you and I will get to share a new experience.
Right.
Because I haven't read that one either, and then have them back on soon.
Yeah. And I just think the character development in this book,
Real.
and I'm led to believe that Chunk obviously has appeared in some of the tier 1 series. So that he's like a spin-off character, but,
Right.
not as a playing alongside Dempsey. But here, I'm immediately drawn to him, and he's like this solo guy, but a great team leader. And it's really cool, one, to see not only the building of the good team, but at the same time, we get to see the building of, the villain. We get to see both of these guys, or it's not quite Chunk's origin story, but his origin story as a tier 1 SEAL leader. And at the same time, we get to see Hamza and Kasim building up this new Al Qadar, and then really the birth of a new terrorist, a new villain in Kasim, which was very interesting.
Yeah.
And because there's, I think we're going to get into this. There's definitely points in time where like you feel for Kasim.
Yeah.
And like you can see how, you want to I want to root for, like, not root for him, but just like I'm like, no, don't do that. Like
you do. Yeah.
You don't go down that path, man. You succeeded. You have like this great life. You had this education. Like, come on. But you understand that like everything was taken from him.
He had scars. Yeah.
And when he cracks, man, that's just like, it's hard. It's hard. Like
it's like a slow recruitment, the slow tumble, and he's being manipulated not only by his best friend, he's also being manipulated by this very charismatic person in Hamza. You're right. As much as I love Chunk and Heels and Saw and oh my God, everybody, I think the best part of this book might be Hamza's recruitment of Kasim and watching him slip and tumble and go down that path and realizing this is how radicalization happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
the closest people to you use you for their purposes, make you feel like they make you feel wanted and accepted. They find that vulnerability in you and they prey on it, and they're predators. And soon enough, you're doing things you never thought you would do, but at the same time, it's bringing you a feeling you never had, a little bit of closure from losing your father, your sister. It's almost bringing you healing doing these things, which is strange to say. And he wrestles. I love how every time it's brought up, he wrestles with the word terrorist.
Right. Yeah. He can't even say it.
He can't say it. And he's so blind to it. But I think I also wrestle with that. Like, he's so vulnerable that. So, like, who's a real terrorist? Is it a true believer like Ishan? Is it a mastermind like Hamza?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just somebody who has a skill set and is manipulated into doing the dirty work of the other two? And they're all terrorists, but in very different ways. And to watch that play out here, it just was so real. I couldn't believe it. And then it comes to a head right when you think everything wrapped up. We've been on this entire journey. What did you think of that conversation with Deba at the end? Because Deba throughout,
Mm,
you just want him to get with her. You want him to have a normal life. You want him to go back to England. You want him to just go back to his roots and say, everything that happened to me damaged me in so many ways, but there's a light, there's a path, and that path was Deba. And when it comes to a head with that conversation, and she's sobbing and revealing, I knew everything Ishan was doing to you, and I believed in you. I thought you would repel it. I wanted to be with you because I knew they would never convert you to this garbage, but they did, and she has to submit to that. I thought that conversation was incredible. I made a list of things: setting, plot, villains, good guys. Let's add dialogue. Just the
right.
depth of the dialogue is another knock out of the park for these guys.
Yeah, deciding to like close out the book with that, and have it that their final interaction, him saying "I will," like
Yeah.
be like the
Yes.
ending, like it's just like it's very intense. But even like
Yes.
right before that, where we get the reveal that Ishan was not who we thought he was. We
Nope.
thought he was like this follower, but in fact, he was the true mastermind.
Yeah.
And Hamza is just like the figurehead, but
The
in
logistics
actuality,
guy.
the logistics guy. But in actuality, Ishan was the one
Yeah.
who orchestrated. He manipulated him. He brought him to Deba, like set this up,
Yep.
recruited him, knew that he would be forced to do this. Not a good friend, not a good friend at
No,
all.
no, no.
And to think that Chunk and the guys kill the leader essentially, and they don't even realize it. I mean,
Dude,
I
that's
guess
another
Hamza
twist.
is, yeah, like Hamza is, going to take over that role, and I'm eventually, it's definitely steering towards. Like, I'm getting this feeling that Kasim is going to be have to go down that road, and it will be elevated to the ultimate leader. Whatever. I haven't got, not spoiling any part of the
Speculation.
book.
Yeah.
It's just pure speculation. So, but to think that the guys don't even realize who they killed, and in doing so, they're like spurring like even more hatred within Kasim. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
And it sets up the next book.
Yeah,
Like
it perfectly.
sometimes you have a very on the nose, almost I might say cheap way to set up the next book. Everyone lived happily ever after, and then a bomb goes off, or
Right, right.
everyone
Someone
lived
gets shot.
happily ever after, and then you get a phone call. But this is a setup for the next book that's built into the plot already with a twist that was believable when it happened, and it didn't need to be a cliffhanger, because I wouldn't call that a cliffhanger.
No,
Like, it would be a cliffhanger if we don't know what happened and we're waiting for clarification. We get the clarification of what happened, but what keeps us coming is that we're so invested with the characters. We don't need like that Brad Thor. She gets shot in the head and is laying there in a pool of blood, cut to black. Which is great in its own right, and it's a device that can work. But when you have characters this deep and relationships this deep, that's what you keep coming back for. You
right,
want to see if Heels will grow into the role and be more self assured. You want to see if Chunk will get it right this time, the way he apologizes to her and say, I let you down by throwing you into the fire without proper warning. That's on me. Now that they've cleared the air, Heels has been in action. She's training at the end, learning how to shoot. It's like game time. We're ready to go. We didn't need a cheap device or cliffhanger. We're ready to go because we want to see these characters at their best, good and bad.
right, right. Yeah, no, and then like, I said like this building up of these characters, the character development, the interactions between Heels and or Whitney and Chunk, and bringing on the team, Saw, Riker, who are also characters that have been shown in this tier one universe, bringing them together and seeing them mesh and mesh quickly and operate efficiently. Like, I think this book has the perfect balance of humor,
Yeah, oh, for
of
sure.
of seriousness,
Yep.
of tactical descriptions,
Yes. And communications.
communicate. Like, I I love like the way that they're like doing an op
Yep.
every time they do an op, and they perfectly describe, at least in my mind, like it gets me. It's very visual in terms of like what they're saying, and then I literally can have this eidetic memory by listening to it and visualize like what is going on.
Yep.
And I don't know if I've ever had something like that, or maybe like the people they in every of these books we read, there's a little bit of Comstock, but it's never like the amount of detail that these guys put into it,
Yep.
and it's not like overly like it doesn't get annoying. You know,
Exactly.
it's everything's needed, it's necessary. Yeah, this book and the writing strikes to me perfect balance in terms of writing style, like within this genre.
Yeah. I can't agree more. It's I love when the team is on the comms, strategizing and talking in the fight and talking to Mother. I love how, she's the intel person. You always wonder how like the people on the intel are feeding that to the operators while they're downrange. And we're nobodies, right? I don't know any of the comms
Hmm.
or the protocols and whatnot, but I feel like it's one of the most real that we've read. Like
Yeah.
every book has someone talking to a team while they're on the ground, or the guys mic'd up and kitted up and they're communicating downrange. But to me, this one just absolutely is on another level in how they get it right. And Andrews and Wilson are Navy guys through and through. I don't know what branches. I forget about that. I don't think special forces even, but between their connections, between their know-how, and they're just very smart, bright people. Wherever they're getting their research, whoever they're talking to, or whatever they know from their own personal experience is just blending perfectly together. So I think you can get a super, I've recommended to a few of my military friends, Mitch Rapp and Brad Thor, and neither of them have like really liked it because I think one, Alex. Alex wants it to be all he's Mr. Army and he's by the book. He's a textbook kind of guy. SOP is very important to him. And so he reads something like that, and it's just like military light. And it's not even like trying to get it right because Mitch was never in the military, but he didn't like it. And I was like, damn, he was somebody I really wanted to convince to like these books.
Mm.
But I think if you give him an Andrews and Wilson's book or a
We
Jack
should
Carr
reach
book,
out to him and give him, we should give him a terminal list and give him Sons of Valor and see what he thinks.
yeah, I definitely think that's a play. I think I went wrong giving him. I think it was Transfer of Power. So yeah, they got it right. It was so exciting, and you mentioned it, Heels. Yes, maybe we should call her Whitney, but let me tell you that nickname and the humor is perfect, especially when it comes after how did Chunk and Saw get their nicknames, and they're joking around. They're like, "That's a story for another time."
Right.
And she's like, "When can I earn my nickname?" He's like, "Yeah, it takes a while, you know. You might not have one anytime soon, Heels."
Exactly. They already had it. They already had it.
Oh, they already had it.
Yeah, no, and just the instant chemistry that's
Hmm.
built between them, and she's obviously, this crazy brain whiz analyst who can dig apart and quickly analyze everything, which is going to be, when we get to my buy-in score, like that's kind of where I'm going to push back
Really? Okay.
a little bit, just in, and I know like it's gotta everything's got to fit. You got to tell the story, but some of her like amazing, maybe, but maybe that's just what they're trying to build. This like, Sherlock's Holmesian,
How she
Einstein
untied the knot.
level. Yeah. I don't know. To me, that it just, I wanted a little more development than seeing her genius before I just believed she was a genius.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
that's like my only gripe. Like,
Okay.
the only thing that I would have to gripe about.
I think that's valid. And I didn't even see that one. I really didn't. I think I was caught up in the moment as I would hope to be, if a book's good.
Yeah, yeah. Like
But
when you're reading it, but obviously, like I'm trying to think about the score and like what I'm going to give it. And I'm
yeah,
thinking like, what don't I love about this book? Is there anything? And that when I was thinking about it, that was the only thing that really came up.
I think again, yeah, if you think about it, that could come up. I'm gonna agree with you. And unfortunately, I'm thinking that's half a point right there. Like sometimes we would write it off, and I'm usually the first person to be like, no, but book is so good in the moment. I didn't even think about it. Full credit. But it happens a little quickly, and especially if you think right away when she saw the explosion and she automatically jumped to, this was a missile strike. It wasn't an IED. I could believe that, right? I'm sure an analyst can
Sure.
be that good to look at the details. But then when she goes again, like, I think they have a drone operational. You know,
Right.
that was a
That
little too quick. So some things
that
buy in.
was
It's not
the
a point, right? You're not, I'm not
no,
docking a
no,
point for
no, no,
this,
no.
but definitely it was one too many times
What
that she
I
put the
guess,
pieces together.
yeah, like for me when she's like they have, or I guess they capture the first operation base for the drone,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
immediately jumps to, but they have more. Like she's like something,
Yeah.
but like, I think they have more. Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like obviously it's a story. You got to tell it.
Right.
Like, but
There could have been one other nugget that got her there to make it more viable, you know?
it's a little too. It's late. Like a little too lazy in a sense.
I hear you. I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna agree. Even later on, when she's like, I think they might be able to go peak to peak and hand off the signal, or you know, when they're in the mobile command centers, they might have made these things mobile and they can hand it off. You know, from MCU to MCU. That might have also been just a little one of those. We're getting it too right, too quickly, too easily. What about timing? Now that I'm onto it, damn, you were just going down this path, aren't we? It, do you feel the timing checks out? Early on, we get a little bit of a time jump between like the
It's three
wedding,
months.
the whole thing, right? And I'm okay with the time jump from like the wedding to now,
Mhm.
oh, he's established in England, right? Like, great. This is like the later on. But then is it too quick when he crosses over into Pakistan to when they're actually using and training and upgraded and souped up all these drones and got all the equipment they needed? And then how quickly they're able to patch into the US's system and use that as cover, right? They're like, we're just going to slip in and use their kind of signals and satellites and protocols. And how quickly they're able to get the mobile command centers up and running. What about timing? Just curious. How did that work for
So
you?
I think yes and no. I think like some of the things, like obviously Hamza had everything. He kind of had a plan.
Yeah, he
Like
had it
he
ready.
knew everything, and then he just needed
The engineer.
a drone expert, an engineer,
Hmm.
who knows how to code these things.
Is that a little too easy though?
Um,
To have it all ready like that?
well, I mean, obviously he'd been planning it for a while because we go to the first op, just right off the bat where they're attacking that boat,
The ship. That was
where
cool.
that was a really cool attack. Where obviously that's like one of the routes where he was, potentially more weapons that were going to be going,
Yeah.
or more drone parts that were going to be going.
Yeah.
What was confusing to me, right, is that Ishan shows up on his doorstep, right?
You're right. In England. Yeah.
And we had just had the scene where like his boss is like, I need you to do this like yesterday.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then he's able to take a holiday.
He's
Like,
gone. Maybe that's what I meant by timing. It didn't sit right that he was doing this whole thing and he was just away from his life in England, yet Hamza is still like, oh no, you're going to go back and you're going to act like everything's normal. Although they wrote it off. Do you remember what Hamza said? He's like, Ishan was working to make you a cover story and he has your travels posted to Facebook
no,
all about you going all over.
I get that, but I don't, the getting there. Like, oh, he shows up and says he's married and you're going to come to my wedding. Like, okay, there should have been a scene where Kasim goes to his boss and says, I need to take a 2-week
I
vacation.
need some time. Right.
Because
Exactly.
essentially, I think he was in Pakistan for 2-3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
A long
Yeah.
holiday. But he's also under this pressure to complete this project like ASAP.
And he has a high stakes job at a big company. Yeah.
Yeah, like essentially the Northrop Grumman, or Lockheed Martin of
Right.
Britain, right? So
Or is it we're going to have to deal with that next book when he tries to reintegrate and that not again, I'm not saying anything about book 2, but is that when you tackle it then of like that's going to be part of the challenges of him reintegrating back to his normal life?
I just would have thought like if
It should have been addressed.
odds are the British government probably has tabs on this guy being a foreign national working for
Right. Right.
their top, you know, one of the top like defense contractors,
Yeah.
and then he makes a sudden trip to Afghanistan, and then he uses a British passport to cross the Pakistani border. Like
British intelligence got to be, on
they're
that.
slipping, they're slipping, bro. Like if it, if not, then I don't know. It's just again, there's little things like that when you start to pull apart a little bit of the plot.
Yeah, you're right.
But here we're trying to find
We're searching. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we're searching. I don't think any of these things can really ding the book that much. But I will say, I think they're legitimate plotting kind of concerns.
Yeah. But besides that, I think everything else with the plot, like I think
Checks out.
checks out,
All checks
you
out.
know?
Yeah.
It's a very condensed like timeline, but I guess like, once he gets there, he immediately says, "All right, well, I need you to start this now." Like and
Yeah.
then they're rolling. They get the
Yeah.
first attack, and then he even says he was up for what 36 hours at a time, like
Yeah.
to get this thing operational. And then that first attack, like we got to spend some time on the action in this book because
Sure. Sure.
not only we kick it off with the
The ship.
attack of the ship,
Yeah.
then we have various attacks on either the safe house,
The
the
cave.
hangar, the cave. Oh, the cave scene was badass.
We even have the wedding. Would you consider that action when the
Oh
drone
yeah.
strike hits the
I think
father's
like
convoy?
even like the description of the drone strike on the U.S. military, like that's action-esque, right?
That's
It's
true.
high stakes, it's suspenseful.
Right.
Um, it should be action slash. We should change this category to action
Slash
slash
suspense.
suspense.
Yeah.
But it's all perfect, and the
Yeah.
description of the pilots and how they interact with the team, and that's awesome. I love a good helicopter. I love a good
Absolutely.
airplane scene. Chunk's airplane gets shot down, right?
Yeah. It's also a bit of a sniper book with Saw. Saw is
Mm-hmm.
God. I mean, I
Saw
love
as
every
God.
time Saw's in
Or
position.
Odin. Saw as Odin.
Saw is Odin. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we're gonna get even more into the depths of a sniper in the next book. Can't
Oh,
wait.
you
I
betcha.
love a good sniper book. But
Dude.
I will say like one of the best quotes from book two, which we're talking about snipers, so it's important, is someone says, "What else are snipers for than to stoke fear?" And that's perfect. I always think back to that. What's that one sniper movie in World War II?
Oh,
Enemy at the
Enemy
Gates.
at the Gates. Yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
great
Great
movie.
movie.
Love that
Fantastic
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, I love Saw, and guys, book two. If you're like Chris and haven't read it, oh my God, you're in for a treat. And I don't even want to say too much here on the pod, Chris, but have you got into some of the scenes involving Saw, the sniper stuff? All right, I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, just leave it at that.
All I will say is if you liked Saw in this book and all that stuff, like, I'm so glad that there's more coming. Oh, we didn't even mention the barbecue scene. How much fun is it with
Oh
the
yeah.
families? And that's part of Chunk's thing, right? Like he's
Hmm.
saying, I deeply care for not only these men, but what these men care for, their spouses, their significant others, their kids, their homes. And you got to imagine that barbecue scene is probably so reminiscent to so many veterans and just the bonds that they forged and the friends that they made. I love seeing those families kicking around in that barbecue scene. They did the same thing in Tier 1, I remember, with Dempsey. And I think that's a very important thing to put in the books. They even do it with Dark Intercept in the Shepherd series. So,
It adds a layer of stakes and
yes.
reality. When you
Yes.
see these guys with their families, with their wives, with their spouses, with their random chicks they pick up, in one of the one of the members' case.
Yep.
But it kind of like lets you know these people are when you only see them or read about them in their element, you don't, and then but you just like maybe they say something in their head, you don't like it's kind of like detached, but like here putting them in a scene with this, having Whitney being introduced, she's becoming part of the family that they've
Yep.
set up in this Tampa facility.
That's
Speaking of the
part of,
Tampa,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's part of Chunk's leadership is letting
Yes.
Whitney know that you are this family now. Because he realizes she's no good if she feels like an outsider, if she feels like her work is undervalued. And he needs to show her, he doesn't just need to build her confidence at her job. He needs to show her, see these guys with their families? I'll do anything for them. And you're part of that. I'd do anything for you too. And we need you to do everything you can for us. And he knows as a leader, he's got to set that tone. It's just fucking brilliant. Dude, here's a quote.
Had a little southern drawl come out there.
Oh, the Texas drawl. I love how he also uses that. He plays that one up when he needs to lighten the mood.
Yeah.
He comes on heavy with his Texas drawl when he realizes, Heels is getting a little shaken. It's great stuff. So here's a quote, one of the only ones I wrote down, and there could have been many more, but I think we just needed one of why Chunk does what he does. And it's precisely what you and I are talking about here. He says, quote, I think this is when Whitney asked him, like, I told you a little bit about me and why I do what I do. How about you? Why do you do what you do? Where do you come from? And he says, I love this community. It's how I define myself. It's become my entire identity, and I want it that way. I love these men. I love operating. I can't think of anything in the world that would give me more satisfaction, sense of purpose, or pride of accomplishment than being a SEAL. In this job, I get to make a difference in the world every day. It's not just words on a t-shirt. And the people you see here today, not just the SEALs, but also the spouses, the kids, the significant others, they're my family. And now, so are you. And to
Perfect.
hear our man Ray Porter
Ray
read
Porter.
that,
Oh, we have to talk about that.
God,
Ray,
is he the best of the best? He's the GOAT. I'm saying it. He's the GOAT.
the current GOAT,
He, I think he knocks off
George.
George Goodell. I think George Goodell does some things extraordinarily well. I don't know if he has the range. I don't know if he differentiates voices as well as Ray Porter does. I think as an actor, as a voice actor, as someone who he just has a much wider range to do more voices and make them really distinct and unique. And it's incredible in this book what he is able to pull off.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure like reading, having Ray Porter like talk to you. It's amazing.
His Hamza and Kasim
Yeah,
are perfect. And then you need to switch over to a Texas boy and Whitney Watts.
he does like the. I mean, his women all kind of sound the same,
Yeah,
but he has
yeah,
like a. You can he distinctly like you can tell like it's crazy how he can switch between that back to like
yeah.
either Chunk or Riker,
Well, how good
and
is he?
then yeah, and then going to like they have is it Gonzalez or Rodriguez? They have like a Hispanic medic, right? And he's able to like throw that in there too, like
Yep.
just be able to pop back and forth between these different like dialects that these Americans have. It's pretty cool.
It's impressive. Really is. You were going to say
Yes,
something before, though.
yeah. To follow up on your quote, it's pretty intense when Whitney shows up in her heels into this gravel lot. Like, first of all, that facility is pretty cool. Where
The
like
Tampa
it's
facility.
just
Yeah.
like three little trailers in a U shape, but it actually like you take elevators like 50 feet down,
Yeah.
and that's where like this whole big tier one facility is at. But when they get in, one of the first thing he does, and he even says like Ray Porter or Andrews and Wilson, right? Like his attitude changed. Like he became very serious when they look at the wall, and
Oh, yeah.
Whitney describes it as something similar to like the wall at the CIA with the stars, and she even mentions that like you did that to me to show me like what all this is mean. Like we have that to show to remind us what we do this for our fallen soldiers.
Yeah.
And that was I like that. That was cool and a nice element that they added to it.
Yeah. I 100% agreed. And there's even a couple of slight moves where dialogue also elevates that compound. I'm thinking when was it Riker who picked up Whitney first and was driving her in?
Yeah.
I think it was Riker. He has some really, they have some good dialogue there. And he's, I don't think, as good as Chunk at welcoming her in or making her feel comfortable. He's not the team leader, but he says to her something like, or she says something and he's like, what tier one compound? What do you mean special facility? I don't know anything about that. And then when they get inside, he's like, welcome to the tier one compound. She's like, I thought that didn't exist. And he's like, we're inside the gates now. And it just like,
Outside the gates, it doesn't.
outside the gates, what are you talking about? Never heard of it. Once they're inside the gates, it's like a whole nother Riker, and they're able to just flip that switch, and stuff like that elevates where we're going, and it elevates the excitement for what we're about to see. And I thought that a lot of dialogue like that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and even like when they're taking actions or doing these hits or these raids, they're very serious, obviously. But like there's a little bit of humor when the various call signs like
Oh yeah,
people get to choose. Like one time they were doing what
the whiskey.
wine varietals.
Yeah,
They did I might be mixing it up, but in one of the cases they do like a Marvel character. It's like
Yep.
it's pretty funny.
Yep.
So
Whiskey was my favorite one though. That was great. Oh man. The humor's great. It's perfectly balanced. It's perfectly thrown in.
yep,
And then a couple other little side characters. Yi working with Heels is great. Captain Bowman being
yeah,
another one of the. You always need that slightly older, more experienced guy.
super serious guy.
Super serious, but yeah, someone everybody is going to take orders from willingly. You know he's competent. And then that CIA asset, Diebold, and his team really saves the day and even saves Whitney's life. And one sacrifices himself. I thought
Oh,
it was,
that the hotel
oh,
scene. We got like
dude,
when I think we should probably transition to the scorecard and we could talk
yeah.
about some of these things, but that hotel scene is intense.
Mm,
Super intense. And it reminded me of, I mean, she even mentions it like this, we're going to have a Benghazi on our hands. And it
exactly,
reminds
right.
me, I don't know if you saw that movie,
Oh, yeah, 13 hours.
13 hours.
Yeah, it felt just like it.
Yeah, intense.
Or it felt like the embassy hit,
Right.
79 in Iran. You just have this foreboding sense of something bad's going to happen here. It's also fun when she has to go to the meeting with the Secret Squirrel guys, and she's kind of on her own. And Chunk's like, "We'll be in a van outside." She's like, "How did you not tell me that?" Like, I feel so much better now. But they have to role play at the hotel,
Hmm.
acting as if they're a couple in a business on a business venture
On a knock, as a knock.
as
Yeah.
Knox. Yeah, exactly. So they're really doing a little bit of everything. It shows you these tier 1 seals are just more than doorbusters. They have to have another skill set.
Yeah. And I was hoping that he kind of like ribs her and says that, she has to work out with them and
She
run.
picks
And
up on it.
she picked it. And I was hoping like he was going to force her to like continue to run
Oh,
and,
how
and,
great
and
is the
work
running
out.
scene?
And,
How great
and
is
when she
that?
pukes and he's like
Isn't the
standing
PT
over her.
scene great when he
Yeah.
wakes her, where he barges in, is like, "Get your shoes on, we're going running."
Yeah. I don't run.
Yep. But then they're able to use that as a learning moment to say, "Look, if you're with the team, you got to give it everything. That includes PT. We need you up and running at our speed. We're gonna be out there, and you're embedded with us." And she's like,
Yeah.
"What?" It's part of the job.
Ex- Exactly. Exactly.
These conversations are great. Yeah, I'm good to transition to the scorecard here. Start breaking it
Let's
down.
do it. What did you think about action, Mike?
Can't beat it.
It's gotta be a 10, dude. It's gotta be a
Absolutely
10.
can't beat it. You cannot beat it. It's a 10. I'm going to go right ahead, say same thing with the plot. You and I nitpicked it. I don't think I would have come to those nitpicks on my own, especially when you're reading the book. You really have to think about them. And because of that, I'm only going to let it affect my buy-in score. So I think the
Mm,
plot, if you think what they're doing with the villains, at the same time, what they're doing with the tier 1 team, the way they weave back and forth, and there's no real need to bring in a third storyline to complicate things.
yeah,
It,
I like that. I liked how it was
it's
crisp and
good
clean.
enough.
We
It's
stayed
yep,
with these two guys.
exactly.
And we're gonna stay with them. That's it.
Yep. Yet it's not simple at all.
No,
You
no, it's
throw in
very
Diva.
complicated.
It's very complicated. You throw in Ishan not being what you thought he was. You don't need another storyline just for storyline's sake to make it seem like a deep thing. You have the depth. So tell that deep story with limited means, and it flowed. So I'm giving it a 10 on plot.
Yeah, and the final like chase to the end scene where like they're
Yeah,
chasing
yeah,
these various cargo trucks and like that. That's awesome. And what their helicopter goes down at
yep,
one point because this freaking he has like a special surprise, right? Hamza says he
yep,
has a surprise for them, and what I guess they don't know what's in this other. Why there's two trailers with this one, and
exactly.
when they're going, the freaking gun pops out, takes down their thing, but they're able to get who they think is Hamza. That little twist too, like was cool. Where like because you're like, oh, we're getting like, I guess you cut right from Hamza talking to Kasim saying we're gonna get out of here, and then you cut to Chunk and he captures and the guy says I'm Kasim or I says I'm Hamza and you're like wait what I thought they just said they were getting
Yep,
out of here and then
yep.
like I think it's like either one or two chapters later where you cut to
It cuts right to it.
the two of them in a car
Yep.
or where whatever and they got out of there and you're like oh the guy like and everything and that's when you have the scene unfolding, understanding what Ishan was, like
Yep.
how he manipulated him. So, yeah.
I love that little twist. You know,
Hmm.
it's a really well done twist. They it paid off. Like they did enough to make it so believable because Hamza the whole time is like, oh no, there's more plans, or oh no, I have things figured out. He's always a step ahead. And so
Sure.
when he's just taken and handcuffed, you're kind of like, oh great, they got him. That was
Yeah, I was
interesting
confused.
and kind of
I was
easy.
confused. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, he surrendered like that? I thought he was a true believer. He didn't have a vest on. You know, you're just kind of like, what? And then you immediately pull the rug right out from under you and subvert expectations. So they earned that, and they earned that twist. Some twists are not earned. Some twists are twists because it's in vogue, right? Like it sells books. It gets people talking on social media. This was a nice twist that was in the playbook, a Hamza's playbook. Like it
Sure.
made sense. So are you rounding up to that 10, or what are you doing on plot? Because you poked a few holes in this one. So
Yeah, since I
yeah,
poked a few holes, I got to
yeah.
stick with it. I'm gonna dock it a half a point and give it a 9.5.
Yeah. See, that half a point for me is coming in buy-in. I think you're
Okay.
right. We talked about it.
Same for me.
I do have to go to 4.5 on buy-in for that.
Yeah,
So,
same for me. Same for me.
yeah, not going to double dock it though. But I could see why you would. I do. I can see it. Bad
Bad
guys and
guys.
good guys, Chris. Tell me, I don't think we have any options. Am I right?
No, man, these are both solid fives.
It's got to be five.
We
Yeah.
talked about how I love getting a villain origin story,
Right.
and I guess Kasim kind of starts out as not a bad guy, and you see him perfectly develop into this, future, ultimately probably going to be like the future leader of this organization alongside Hamza. And, you know, you throw in Hamza there, this like snake oil salesman kind of figure who super intelligent, like you said, always thinking a step ahead. You throw in Ishan, who's secretly like the mastermind behind all of this. Yeah, no, the trio of them are perfect. And then like we said, the good guys like Saw, Riker, Chunk, Watts, Yi, like the whole tier one team is just amazing. It clicks. Like I love these guys. And then you throw in all like the other like little characters that they meet, like you said, the DIA agent, what's his name? Um
Was that Thebo? T-Bold
Theobald,
something?
Theobald, Theobald. Yeah, yeah,
Thebo.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
Okay,
good
he was DIA. Gotcha.
DIA, yeah, yeah.
Not CIA. Yeah. A
Whatever
couple of
they
the other techie
what do
people.
they
Oh,
say?
some fun guy. He was funny. The techie dude. There was one scene where he like got a victory or something. I could just see him like that gamer, like so tied into his computer, and then just stands up and goes, "Yes,
Oh, Fun Time. His name
victory!"
is Fun Time. Yeah,
Fun
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah.
That's it.
Fun Time. Yeah, yeah. The Uyghur. The Uyghur. Yeah.
Fun time is a great name. That's fantastic. Yeah, dude. 5 out of 5 on this. You said it. It's just perfect. And if somehow, even if you were going to go a little lower on bad guys, let's just say someone was hitting that like 4 range, that conversation with Deba at the end
Mm,
just gives, if you didn't see it yet in the book, it gives Kasim that extra depth of realism. And I gotta say, it's a perfect 5 for bad guys and good guys. Wish we could go higher. One of those moments I wish we can do 6s.
yeah.
Setting. Curious what you're gonna say here.
I'm thinking about this. Like, besides like the complex, like that was cool. How did you feel about like did you feel like you were in the Hindu Kush? It's not I felt that I've read books. I'm comparing this to the Apostle, where
Mm-hmm.
we're in Afghanistan in those villages. This is way more compartmentalized in the sense, yeah, we are in Afghanistan, we cross over to Pakistan. We don't really get to see the village aspect. We're more so just like hidden behind fences at military complexes, right?
Yeah.
Or in a hangar, right? Well, that's where Ashan and Hamza and Qasim are pretty much the entire time.
I would argue 2 things there. Agree with you. It does those very well. The behind the
Sure,
fences, inside the
yeah.
base life.
In what it does good. But
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like I was. I don't know. I just can't justify a 5
No, I
in my
agree
sense.
with you, but I'm also gonna go only half a point down to
Sure.
4.5, because what earns that half point back is, one, the border crossing.
Yeah, that's the only time where I felt like they truly got the setting where it like
Mhm.
came off the page, you know?
Yes, so that brought the whole Pakistan, Afghanistan area, it brought it, into color. I would also say the wedding. It happened early on,
Mm.
but the wedding scene, you can see the flowing dresses, you can smell the food, see the dancing going on. I think I'm going to go 4.5 because of that, but it's very close to a 5. But you're right. I think you're right. Maybe
Yeah,
some of the
just
operations, the hotel is like a 4.8, maybe, like I kind of get where it is and what's going on, but it didn't have that edge. And same thing when they're doing the operation in that cliff. They're describing the coordinates and the geography and where they're escaping and the directions that they're going and what's over here, what's over there. But it was isolated. It didn't feel well rounded or connected to other locations we've been to. So yeah, 4 or 5 for me.
or like even, at the end, we're at I guess they're at Jalalabad and then they go to Kandahar, right?
Yeah,
We don't even get like a true description of like what they just go to this random, the spooky building on base. Like
yeah,
that's what Chunk calls it. But getting a little bit more feel of like what that is,
yeah.
would have been, I think, would have elevated it to
And
that
at the
5.
same time, that happened a little quickly. Good that it was quick in terms of the action was propelling forward and happening. But
Oh
when the
yeah,
missiles were incoming, that was a little. If I'm going to go back to plot and try to wiggle out of that perfect 10 on plot, it might have been intercepting the
I kind
missiles at the end.
I kind of forgot about that. What did you feel about, you immediately read the chapter where they're like, we're gonna target Kandahar, and then they're like, oh, you got to go to Kandahar to meet like some drone guys,
Yeah.
and then that, oh shit, they're going to Kandahar, she's gonna get attacked.
I think timing. Maybe that's another. Remember before I was
Yeah, in the
trying to
beginning you were you
verbalize the
were you were
timing?
talking like that, it would just happen so fast.
That's another example of it. I couldn't think of it then. I was like, there was something else that rubbed me wrong, and it was that. The same time they were all ready, Hamza was like, we got to go. Let's launch these things. Let's get them in the air. We're also given time for Heels and crew to get to Kandahar and go through the protocols and get everything checked out and get everyone on the horn and get up to speed and figure out this thing. I don't know if the timing totally checks. I think because of that, I got to revisit my plot score. That's what I was trying to remember, and
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
that's
little
what it
bit of a
is. That
ding.
I when I was reading it, that was, I was hanging up a little bit on that. Again, we're nitpicking, but
We are,
that's what we do here in the scorecard. So,
yeah. So 9.5 then. All right, all right, all
all
right.
right, all right. Cover.
Whew, this was the
I
one. This was I was gonna. I had it.
You gave this a 5, like because the covers are very similar between the 3 books.
They are. They're almost the exact same.
I'll give it points for having to do with the story. We have a drone.
Yes, yes, yes.
We have an operator. We have a couple operators. We have some
The
explosions.
team.
Definitely, there was some explosions. But to me, this just screams like generic. Like to me, this would be a cover that would be given to like the Europeans.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when we look at the mid trap novels and they just have like fighters on it, or like the German novels, right? The German covers.
Yes. Yes. I have to agree with you, but
Whereas like I think about tier one, right?
mhm.
The and that cover is cool. Like it has an operator and explosions, but there's something different about it. This is To me, this is just like
though the
so video gamey.
though the tier 1 cover you could also say is a generic. If you just go on a makemeacover.com or whatever, like
Yeah.
I just want to buy a cover from some artist who posts these things a dime a dozen. The tier 1 cover almost looks like it could be just one of those.
Yeah.
It's cool though. It's a cool design. I have to say, the reason I'm okay with the Sons of Valor one is twofold. I'm pretty sure this book was pushed as an e version, as an
Mm.
audiobook with Ray Porter, primarily. I was just talking to you. I don't even know if there was a hardcover print besides the large print edition, which they probably wanted to make sure to have for accessibility purposes. I don't remember seeing a hardcover float around social media or anytime a Sons of Valor book comes out. Not too many people like holding it, posting with it. So I think if you're going for the ebook version of a cover, this is kind of the route you want to go.
Sure.
It works as a square format. The audiobooks are usually that square. And then the other reason I want to give them credit is
I do
they
like the lettering on the Sons of Valor.
the lettering is cool. It's almost like metallic. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's almost like on the side of a ship or a truck. The other thing, though, is this kitted out operator. I think it's a symbol of tier 1 teams. I feel like they wanted to create that. They even had a t-shirt. They gave me a free one. Maybe that's why I want to give them some points here. And it had this operator kind of in a black and white silhouette.
Yeah, we have it. They sent it to me too.
Yeah, you got one too.
That t-shirt is cool.
It's pretty badass. So you're almost creating an identity for the series with that. So I kind of like the idea of, in this case, putting a kitted out operator front and center with all the high tech gear. I think it actually works for what they're trying to create and create a brand here.
Okay. All I'm saying is it's not a 5.
It can't be a 5. Question I'm dealing with is it a 4?
I was going to go there. I think it's like a 3.5.
I could understand a 3.5, but because I want to be generous for those reasons I just described, I'm going to give it the 4. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
It's got the drone too. I really like how the drone.
I do like the drone. I like the drone on there.
And I like how we see the team.
The radar
advancing. And the radar, yep.
You know what I would if I could make a cover for this novel, if you could have like radar and have like all like the little like drones, like every drone that's like operating over
Yep.
like the Middle East at a given time.
Like what they saw at the Kandahar base.
Yeah, or I would have a trident, like a Navy SEAL trident.
Yeah. See, I don't want to play that armchair quarterback with this. I just want to appreciate the brand they're creating, and
No,
I have
this
to
is
say,
their brand. This is their brand for their
I'm
series,
glad they
and they've
stuck with it.
They've stuck
I'm
with
glad
it.
with all 3 books.
I'll give them like bonus points for that in the future books. But
it's not my favorite format, but I like that it created a brand. It created an identity that they kept up with. So I gotta say, I don't want to ding it too hard because of that. 4.
Going 4, I'm going 3.5. Okay.
4. Yeah.
What's your winner of the book? What's your free space?
Dude, there's a million.
There's a million you can choose from.
A million ways to go with this. I have to pick Kasim's journey.
That's a good one.
I think it's really smart to make front and center, and perhaps the most important thing happening in this story is understanding how someone like Kasim got to where he was at the end of the book, and not shying away from it, not hiding anything, not making it cheap, but going whole hog into what this man's world and worldview is like, and understanding his point of view, I think, was dealt with very maturely. And sadly, because it creates radicalized terrorists who have a skill set to actually inflict a lot of harm on people. But I understand his worldview. And to make me say I understand his why he's doing what he does is pretty powerful. So I'm going with Kasim's journey.
I like what you said there. It's not cheap. It's doing the work to build up this villain, like in your first book, instead of just introducing somebody.
Yes.
You could have easily just had Hamza be the main villain, and then
100%.
Kasim could have been just a random person that flew the drone, right? Yeah. But to put the work in to build this character up, and we go on a journey with him. That's what elevates this book.
Agreed.
For me, I gotta go Watts. Yes. I gotta go Heels. Like, she is such a great character, funny, intelligent, smart. Obviously is the bones. Like, without her, the tier 1 group wouldn't have been successful in their first ops. Wouldn't have been able to go on these various ops. So even though I nitpicked her a little bit, but it's not her. It's like Andrews and Wilson putting like these in her voice. So she's definitely my winner.
I'd be fine if you call this a Whitney Watts book. Like, absolutely fine with that description.
Yeah, like if she was the main character and everybody else was around her. She is. Well, I think Chunk's the main character.
Sure. But without her, his leadership and his story isn't
They're both.
isn't as
They're both.
compelling.
So I want to ask you this question. I hope they don't get together. I don't want to see
Yeah,
them
yeah,
have a romantic relationship.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah, yeah,
why.
yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's so good as a mentor mentee. It's like you don't need it. You just don't need it. You don't want it, and you don't need it. So why do it? Like why even go
I
there?
know like the way if you're thinking about this as a screenwriter or whatever, you would have them, they're somewhat adversarial in this first book. You have them come even closer, and
Right,
then you finish with them
falling
getting
for each other.
together, and then But anyways,
Or if your name is Brad Thor, yeah, never mind.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I don't know. I like that they're friends, like you said, this mentor mentee
Yep,
relationship. So
yep. And it's almost like a weird uncle niece brother
yeah,
sister. Like it's that
not
kind of
quite father
dynamic.
daughter, but
Not
like
father daughter,
oh,
not quite brother sister, not quite. It's like an uncle niece kind of
yeah, it's
thing,
more of the uncle niece. Yeah,
but they're
yeah.
close in age. We're like, yeah,
All right. So what are our totals here, Mike?
yeah. What does this come to? 1 and 2.5. If you could check the math, you're the doctor of the podcast. I'm definitely higher than you. I think I could. I believe that, but by how much? Only a half. Wow.
I don't know how I did the math wrong, but
I clock in at a 47 and a half. You clock in at a 47. Chris, those are some really, really good scores on the Thriller Pod scorecard.
yeah, very good scores. I mean, this book was banging, so I
This
knew it
book
was
was
gonna get.
banging.
I knew it was gonna get a good score. 47, solid score,
Is
dude.
that the highest score we've given
Together,
since maybe ever or since what did we have? We
I feel like
haven't
we've
done
given
Mitch Rapp
something like a
scores
48, 49.
besides Damascus Station.
Yeah, we gave this Max Station a high score.
Any Jack Carr books? Okay, I did 47 on the terminal list, but you did 44 and a half. You did 47 and a half on Savage Son, but
Mm,
I did a little lower, 45 and a half. So combined, this beats any Jack Carr book we've done.
wow.
Chris Howdy books have not scored this well. Don Bentley book has not scored this well. Let's see.
We haven't been this
Hype. This hype.
high praise. What did Fall get? What did we give to Fall?
Deadfall was really good, but you gave it okay, close. You gave it 47. I gave it 46. So that might
Mm.
be that and Takedown, 47 for me, 46 and a half for you. So far the top
Yeah,
books.
I would equivalent this to like how much I love Takedown.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I'd agree. I would say it's a step below how much I love like a Memorial Day,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Damascus Station, but it's somewhere in that books we've covered on the podcast. It's in the A tier. It's like
Mhm.
A2, A3 for
Mhm.
sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Top 5 right now of the highest Thriller Pod scorecard books ever. Put it that way.
Yeah, I don't really have that many books. I think I have Memorial Day, American Assassin, Takedown, Lions, maybe. I don't know.
You want to hear something great? And I'm sure you're well into seeing
I
this.
gotta throw in like Savage Son.
True, true. The second one is even better.
Is even better. Yeah,
Flat out
that's why
insane.
when you told me that,
Even better.
and when we leave on like the semi cliffhanger, I like, all right, here I go.
Yeah.
I gotta read this. So yeah, I'm already 23 chapters in. I can't wait to talk to you about that.
And in just a couple of weeks, we get to do the third one together because I haven't even touched that one yet. Pumped for that.
So next week we'll be bringing you Sons of Valor 2.
Violence of Action, which is a line at the very end of this one. Violence of Action. Chunk's talking to Whitney about why they do what they do, and it's not about fighting and killing, it's about defending and protecting.
All right, we need to thank our patrons, our special operator Sherry F, our special agents Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Piggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram at thrillerpodcast. And as always, just let Chunk be Chunk.
And just let Watts be Watts.
Yeah, there you go. You can do either or. Yeah.
Can't have one without the other. Peanut butter and jelly, those two.
Yeah, for sure.